Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down this 10-game MLB DFS slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Before we get into it, if you do enjoy the content at any point in this video, if you could please take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss any future content that I upload. That would be greatly appreciated. Hitting that subscribe button and that like button is going to help me out tremendously. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. And I'll be here all MLB season long breaking down these MLB slates to help you guys become better MLB DFS players and help you guys win some money. So if you could take 1 second to do that, that would be great. Free content on the channel. If you are interested in some further content from me, some more in-depth content, and some more one-on-one access to ask me questions, I do offer some premium content linked below in the description. You get access to me, ask me questions all the way up to lock, and then you also get access to all of the tools that I use in building my own lineups. Things like my starting pitcher data sheet, hot hitter stat guys data, splits leaderboard, team hitting data, bullpen data, my power rankings, and my cheat sheet. So check that out if you're getting serious. Link below in the description. If you're playing MLB DFS every single night, I'd highly recommend it. Or if you're just playing a lot throughout the season. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking down this slate today. Don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video for my home run call of the day. And let's get into it. As always, I like to go ahead and chart my sheet by carry. It's fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts. We're going to figure out the pitchers that we really want to be playing today, and then we'll switch over to bats. And the top pitcher on the slate today, without a doubt, is going to be Shane Beaver, taking on the Kansas City Royals. Comes in with a 33.8% carry overall, a 15.4 swinging strike rate, 32.9% K rate against righties, and then a 34.8% K rate against lefties. Has been very, very good for quite some time now. We're dealing with a 334 innings pitch sample size on this data sheet right now. And it's a pretty good friendly opponent in the Kansas City Royals. We're not all too worried about them when it comes to getting to Shane Beaver. There's going to be plenty of strikeouts to be had in this lineup. And overall, when the guy's got a 33% carry overall, that's just elite stuff. And you're not really worried about it. It's on the verge of 34% with a 15.4 swing strike rate. He's going to have his fair share of strikeouts. By far the top guy on the slate today, and he's priced up for good reason. He's 12-2 on FanDuel. Over on DraftKings, they got him priced at 10-4. So you're going to pay for him, but I'd say he's priced appropriately. You know, he is the top guy on the slate, so definitely like him. Second on the list, we got Freddie Peralta, also a great option on the slate today. A 33.4% carry overall, 13.9 swing strike rate. The ground ball, the fly ball stuff's been a little iffy, but he has a 33.6% K rate against righties, and then a 33.2% K rate against lefties. And he is taking on a Philadelphia Phillies team that has been striking out a lot to start the season, so I definitely do like him in this particular matchup. I think he's got a ton of upside, and there's going to be quite a few good pitchers on this slate today that are in similar situations. 12 mile-an-hour winds blowing in for him. That's going to help his case. Philadelphia, traditionally a very good hitter's park, but if you got that wind blowing in from left center, you know, that's not going to hurt his case at all. He comes in at 9K on FanDuel. Over on DraftKings, they have him priced at 9.5, so I do think that he's a great play today. I think he's going to have a ton of upside in this particular matchup. Both him and Shane Bieber, great options. Shohei Ohtani is going to be taking the mound today for the Angels. It's something I want to keep my eye on because as of now, both the sites, DraftKings and FanDuel, do have him listed as a positional player. Typically speaking, you know, they'll switch him over to a pitcher. And then, you know, he doesn't occur fantasy points as a hitter. So I'm guessing they're going to make some sort of an announcement throughout the day and, like, switch him to the pitcher position and, like, price him. But we don't really have any prices to deal with right now. Like, he's priced at 4K on FanDuel, but that's because he's priced as a hitter. He also is expected to hit in the lineup, so I don't know, like maybe they keep him as a hitter, and then you can play him as a hitter. Just keep an eye on that, because that's obviously really relevant. But if he does pitch, he's taking on a Tampa Bay Rays team that has been striking out quite a bit. They're not exactly the best team to be targeting as far as the public's concerned. They look at the Tampa Bay Rays and they think they made the postseason, the World Series type of deal. I don't really want to target them, but there are plenty of strikeouts to be had. And Shohei Ohtani does have a 33.3% carry overall. Good ground ball and fly ball stuff, 41% K rate against righties, and then a 25.6% K rate against lefties. We are only dealing with a 15 innings pitch sample size because he hasn't pitched a lot in the last 2 years. So looking for those numbers to consistently continue to get more accurate for Shohei. But overall, we know he's an elite talent. He's had a walk issue, shaking off the rust here, a 26.9% walk rate. But if he's in, I do think he's a great play taking on these Tampa Bay Rays as well when you factor in his upside in the matchup. We gotta keep an eye on what the sites are going to do with him because as of now he's not listed as a pitcher, so keep an eye on that one. Yu Darvish taking on Pittsburgh comes in with a 31.5% K rate overall, 36.8% K rate against righties, and then a 27.1% K rate against lefties. Good ground ball, fly ball stuff all across the board. He has a 3.4 Sierra. A very good pitcher. The only problem is, and it's not really necessarily a problem, he's a big favorite taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates, but they don't really strike out the most in the league. Like a few of these guys we've been talking about, like a Freddie Peralta and a guy that we're going to get to in a second, Walker Buehler, are facing guys that are teams that are striking out a ton. The Pirates aren't the most scary opponent, and they will have their fair share of strikeouts. So I do definitely like Yu Darvish, but it's a matter of like he's 11-8 on FanDuel and Shane Bieber's 12-2 on FanDuel. Like that's really close in pricing, and I tend to think I'm going to be playing Shane Bieber pretty easy in that spot instead of switching. And then the same rule applies on DraftKings. 10-2 for Darvish and 10-4 for Beaver. Now, of course, you could play both of them over here on DraftKings, but if I'm having to pick one, I do think that I'm going to lean going with Shane Bieber. But, you know, as I go along my day, that could change. But first glance, I really think you got to go with Beaver. I mean, he's got a higher K rate, a higher swinging strike rate, and he's got a higher K rate against those left-handed hitters. Just about the same K rate against the righties. So overall, I just think that Bieber has some higher upside. Now, Yu Darvish is a heavier favorite. His team's expected to put up some more runs for him. So you got to weigh these things in too. Because, of course, we always do prefer to get the win in DFS when our pitcher takes the mound. Robbie Ray taking on Oakland is going to be an interesting one in this one. A 29.6% K rate overall, a 29.4% K rate against righties, and then a 30.3% K rate against righties. You're going to have to decide whether you play Robbie Ray or not against this Oakland squad. They're very good at hitting left-handed pitchers. They do have a lot of strikeouts in their order, so I wouldn't call you crazy if you want to go to him. But he's going to have a tough matchup today, so he's a viable option, but not someone I'm getting all too excited to go to. I'd much rather play Walker Buehler here, taking on the Chicago Cubs. A 28.6% K rate overall, 12.1 swinging strike rate. 29% K rate against righties, and then a 28.3% K rate against righties. The ground ball, the fly ball, all that stuff against righties isn't as great as his rates against lefties. But overall, just solid across the board, and he gets to take on a Chicago team similar to the Philadelphia Phillies team. We're talking about Freddie Peralta, and I said I was excited to talk about Walker Buehler because the Chicago Cubs also do strike out a lot. There's going to be 8-mile-an-hour winds blowing in Chicago, 50-degree weather. It should be great pitching weather for Buehler. And he comes in at 10K on FanDuel. Over on DraftKings, they got him priced at 9.7. Once again, he's a little too close to like Yu Darvish, Bieber, and that range. Like you're gonna have to make some tough decisions there. That's why I almost think like Darvish might be coming in fourth for me today because all these pitchers are really good, but based upon the matchup, like you got Walker Buehler, Freddie Peralta taking on teams that strike out a lot. You got Shane Bieber, who just has a higher K rate, and the Kansas City Royals strike out a decent amount. Gonna have to really crunch the numbers, but plenty of options to go to in this slate, guys, and in multiple price ranges. So if you're in a lineup that you really want to fit in a bat and you have to go down like 200 to a pitcher, this slate's gonna make you feel good about that because you got options. And then once we get past those guys, things do die down pretty quickly here. You got Jordan Montgomery taking on Houston. He's been pretty good on the season, but Houston just really doesn't strike out. I'm not really excited to be targeting them with a left-handed pitcher. You got Max Fried taking on the Washington Nationals. Maybe he could be an interesting option. I do think he'd probably be the next one I'd be going to. He has a great ground ball fly ball rate, a 23.9% K rate overall, a 23.5% K rate against righties, and then a 25.6% K rate against lefties. And just pretty solid across the board. And Washington isn't the easiest matchup, but I do think that he has some upside. And like I said, I have a tendency I'm not even going to be debating on this range because the guys that we talked about in the upper tier, I just have a feeling I'm going to be trying to get in my lineups as much as possible. Brady Singer taking on Cleveland. He's been in the league for quite some time now. A young prospect that is expected to be really good. We have a pretty large sample size on him now. 87 innings pitched. He has a 24% K rate overall. The ground ball and the fly ball stuff's been really good, and he's pretty good against both sides of the plate as well. 25.5% K rate against righties. Ground ball, fly ball stuff's great, and a 22.8% K rate against lefties. He is heavily reliant on the sinker, so his ground ball stuff's really good. But yeah, I think he could be a viable option taking on Cleveland. So I wouldn't hate on that at all. I mean, you look at his numbers across the board; it's really good. And they got JT Brubaker taking on San Diego Padres, who's been really good as well. But they just don't strike out, and they're a tough matchup. So I tend to think I want to avoid that. One more guy you could be playing, or two more guys based upon matchup would be Chase Anderson taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. They've just been striking out so much. So put him in your lineup possibly and feel good about it. He is reverse splitsy. He's a lot worse against righties than he is lefties, which might help his case in this particular matchup because the Brewers do tend to throw out quite a few lefties in their lineup. So maybe an interesting option there, Chase Anderson. And then lastly, you got Martin Perez taking on the Detroit Tigers, which Martin Perez doesn't really strike anyone out, but he does have good ground ball fly ball rate, and these Tigers have just been striking out against everyone. So that automatically makes him a viable play because they've just been that bad. So Switching over to some bats that we're going to want to target. As always, I like to short my sheet by Sierra, skill, and active ERA. Figure out the worst pitchers in the league. Shohei Ohtani is the worst on the slate, but that's just because of the small sample size. I think that's going to be straightened out pretty soon here. 6.17 Sierra. I'm not really looking to target Shohei Ohtani. Eric Fetty would be the first guy I'm looking to take it on the Atlanta Braves. He has a 14.4 K rate, 6.7 swinging strike rate. That's really, really bad. Does not avoid contact at all. The ground ball and the fly ball stuff's pretty good, but he gives up a 425 slugging to righties and then a 441 slugging to lefties. And, I mean, the main thing with Fetty is he just can't miss bats. The ball is constantly being put in play. Now, you can make an argument that while that happens, he does a pretty good job at tilting DFS players because he doesn't really give up the most hard contact and all that stuff. But when I'm targeting Fetty, I tend to base it upon the talent of the opposing team, and the Atlanta Braves definitely have a very talented lineup. So the ball's going to be put in play. They have guys that can hit the ball very well, guys like Ronald Acuna, Freddie Freeman, Marcell Ozuna, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Dansby Swanson, William Contreras, Christian Patch, like all up and down this order. Of course, you got those elite guys in the top three. But then the rest of the lineup's really solid as well. So I have no issues with the Atlanta Braves stack. Just know what you're dealing with. Hard contact's not the worst, but he's going to let the ball be put in play a lot. Martin Perez taking on the Detroit Tigers. We just talked about how he's not that great, but he's taking on a Tigers team that's not that great either. He gives up a 453 slugging and right-handed hitting. That's really his weakness. Against lefties, he's very good. He is a left-handed pitcher himself. So while the Tigers aren't the best team in the world, we could target some right-handed power from them. Looks like it's going to be terrible hitting weather there. It's going to be wet, soggy field conditions with like 53 degrees, the wind blowing in, but humid, so maybe better than we anticipate here looking at it first glance. But guys that rake lefties, so most notably Jonathan Scope, Wilson Ramos, Jacoby Jones, those three guys, and then I have no issues with going to Heimer Candelario, Miguel Cabrera, Robbie Grossman at the top of the order, Nico Goodrum, Victor Reyes, Grayson Greiner can play all those guys, but the two guys that probably stand out to me the most on this team are Jonathan Scope and Wilson Ramos, so those two guys specifically could be playing some right-handed power. Casey Mize taking on Boston. This guy has some very, very clear splits issues early on in his career. He's supposed to be a really elite talent for these Detroit Tigers. He really hasn't been the greatest. The ground ball and fly ball stuff's not the greatest, but he has been really good against righties. The problem is he has been dreadful against lefties. A 619 slugging, a 40% hard contact rate, a 432 WOBA. Really, really bad against those left-handed bats, and that's going to make me have interest in every single one of these Boston Red Sox left-handed bats that takes the field today, most notably Alex Verdugo, Rafael Devers, Franchi Cordero. I mean, Rafael Devers in the 5 spot is just going to be an absolute smash play against Casey Mize, and the same rule applies for Alex Verdugo, but Devers has got to be my favorite. And just in a tremendous spot taking on Casey Mize with some clear issues against left-handed hitting. Moose Thorpe taking on Texas. I think this one's going to be probably a bullpen game here. As far as how long his leash is going to be, the guy's pitched 4 innings one game and one inning pitched the other. Numbers have really been less than impressive. As far as team total, there is none out. He is a lefty taking the bump, so we're going to have some more interest in the righties on this Texas squad most likely. However, a 516 slugging given up to righties, a 384 WOBA given up to righties as well. And then if you go over to lefties, he has a 583 slugging given up and a 415 WOBA. So he's still pretty bad against those left-handed bats, and he's pretty bad overall on the ground ball and the fly ball stuff against both sides, which I think means we could have some interest in these Texas Rangers bats. There's 8-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. Willie Calhoun, Nick Solak, Nate Lowe, Joey Gallo, Adolis Garcia, David Dahl. Like a guy like Joey Gallo that has so much power, and Nate Lowe that has so much power. They've been struggling, but this guy could maybe be, a little bit of a band-aid to their struggles because he's really been bad. Has a 24.4% K rate against lefties, so that's the one downside they're targeting those lefties. But I do think that Texas could be a sneaky stack today, so I just wanted to mention them. Chase Anderson taking on Milwaukee, as mentioned, has some really bad reverse splits. He has a 534 slugging again with the righties, a 369 WOBA. He's really actually a lot better against left-handed bats. So the Milwaukee Brewers, unfortunately, do have a pretty left-handed heavy lineup, but guys like Lorenzo Cain, Abasil Garcia, Luis Arias, and Luke Molly are going to be much more intriguing options than typically would be just because of how bad Chase Anderson is against right-handed bats. When against lefties, it's not like he's elite, but things get a lot better. So you can still stack up this Milwaukee Brewers team if you'd like. They have a 4.27 implied run total. I'm not going to be the one to talk you off them as far as the left-handed side, but I would feel a lot more comfortable if they were more right-handed heavy. And that brings us to another guy that has some really obvious splits. Luis Garcia taking on the New York Yankees. Ground ball, fly ball stuff's really bad. He only gives up a 194 slugging to righties, however, with a 188 WOBA. Ground ball, fly ball stuff's really, really bad, but the slugging is limited. Against lefties, though, he is terrible once again. A 596 slugging, giving up a 390 WOBA, 45.2% fly ball rate, and a 35.7% ground ball rate. Unfortunately, the Yankees lineup does have a very right-handed heavy lineup, so we can't really capitalize on this to the biggest extreme like we'd like to. But I still think the Yankees lineup is going to be a viable one today. And just keep in mind, guys like Aaron Hicks, Ruth Odor, if Brett Gardner cracks the lineup, are definitely going to be a lot better plays than they typically would be. There's 9-mile-an-hour winds blowing out in Yankee Stadium, 62 degrees. They have a 4.84 implied run total. And while his numbers are really good against righties, he does still give up ground balls. I mean, he still does have a pretty bad ground ball, fly ball rate. So when you're facing a team that has a bunch of talent and, they're starting to heat up, I think you might be able to bypass it. I mean, I'd feel a lot better about playing the Yankees if Garcia was not so good against right-handed hitting. So you're going to have to pick what side of the fence you're on there. Kind of tough to fully promote them with those numbers. Robbie Ray taking on the Oakland Athletics is the next guy we really got to talk about. I had mentioned he has a hard contact issue of 41.6% hard contact, a 31.8% ground ball rate, a 484 slugging given up to right-handed hitting. Really, really bad against right-handed hitting. The only thing he's got going for him is approximately a 30% K rate, so he can strike guys out. But this Oakland Athletics team is just one that I love to target against left-handed pitching, and we get a situation where we get to do so tonight. Mark Canha, Ramon Laureano, Sean Murphy, Matt Chapman, Jed Lowry, Stephen Piscotty, Elvis Andrus, all those guys you can't play. I mean, they all perform well against lefties. There's not a single guy I just named that hits from the right-handed side of the plate that struggles against left-handed pitching. So, obviously, the favorites are going to be the guys that can really match at the top. Mark Canha, Ramon Laureano, Sean Murphy at the top. You got to really like them. Matt Chapman in the middle order. You got to like him. I think Jed Lowry is a great play at the second base position. And I think Stephen Piscotty and Elvis Andrus are great salary relief options in the stack as well. All right, moving further along. Jordan Montgomery taking on the Houston Astros. I mentioned I don't really want to target him from a pitching aspect, and I do think you could definitely target him with some Houston Astros bats tonight. He gives up a 5.11 slugging to right-handed bats, a 351 WOBA. The ground ball, the fly ball stuff's all pretty good, but when you're taking on a Houston Astros team that has some guys that really do hit left-handed pitching really well, could be problematic for him tonight. And most notably, guys like Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, Yulieski Gurriel, Miles Straw, Martin Maldonado. Favorite of the bunch has to be Alex Bregman, the guy that just absolutely mashes left-handed pitching. I think he's in a great spot tonight, taking on Montgomery. So no issues with going to the Houston Astros stack. And then as far as anyone else, you can target Max Fried with right-handed bats against this Washington team, but the ground ball and the fly ball stuff's just so good. I'm not getting all too excited about it. If you wanted to play a Washington stack, I wouldn't call you crazy. But there's 13-mile-an-hour winds blowing in, and he's really good at the ground ball and fly ball stuff. You're going to be playing the righties, guys like Trey Turner, Josh Harrison, Ryan Zimmerman, Starlin Castro, Yan Gomes. They all are going to have pitch hit risk later in the game as well, so I'm not really all too sure I'm trying to go there. And I think that's my overall breakdown of this 10-game slate. Before I let you guys go, I got to give you my home run call of the day. Let's get into it. And my home run call of the day today is going to be Alex Bregman taking on Jordan Montgomery. I had mentioned some slugging issues against right-handed hitting, and most notably, Alex Bregman just absolutely mashes left-handed pitching. Not to mention, he's in Yankee Stadium tonight, a great hitter's ballpark for home runs, and it's looking like some pretty good hitting weather. 9-mile-an-hour winds blowing out straightaway center. We got 72% humidity. Ball should fly pretty well tonight in Yankee Stadium. And we're breaking down what Jordan Montgomery throws as far as pitches. Alex Bregman crushes all of them. As far as the changeup is concerned, Jordan Montgomery throws the changeup about 83 miles an hour in about 30% of the time. Alex Bregman features a 229 ISO with a 433 WOBA against that pitch. And then moving on to his other pitches, he throws the sinker and the curveball. Sinker about 23% of the time. Alex Bregman has a 275 ISO with a 456 WOBA. And lastly, the curveball about 20% of the time, and Alex Bregman features a 240 ISO with a 437 WOBA against that pitch. I think Bregman's in a great spot to go deep off Montgomery tonight, and he is my home run call of the day. So there you have it, guys. Alex Bregman, get him in your lineups. He's going deep tonight. Hurts me to say. I am a Yankees fan, but try to give you guys non-biased content. I think he's in a great spot off Jordan Montgomery to go deep tonight. So you got to like Alex Bregman and get him in your lineups because he's going deep. That is all from me in this one. Wish you guys all the best of luck tonight. Don't forget to check out my premium content link below in the description if you're getting real serious about MLB DFS. I think it's going to help you out become a much more profitable player. And hit that like and subscribe button if you did enjoy the content. Wish you guys all the best of luck tonight, and we will see you in the next one.